Sierra and Rono are about to come on and just blow your mind. These two are doing some unconventional, progressive things with community and couples, and it is going to rock your world with what they're doing with retreats. So stay tuned. Before we dive into that, I'm talking to you because you're becoming your greatest possible self. However, I can support you in doing that further. Let's explore, let's play, let's have fun, because I want to support you, whether that's coming on the marathon as a guest, getting your message out, launching your podcast, coming to our Flow and Fire Bali retreat in November, going to Rono and Sierra's upcoming invitation-only experience. Whatever it is for you, those next steps, take it. Take the leap, okay? The next thing I want to share is the review of the week. It's Jen Hudgens who says, love this podcast. This podcast is so motivating. I love the caliber of guests and the energy Chris brings to the show each and every time. Thank you so much, Jen. I appreciate you, sending you so much love, and we are going to dive into this interview. By the way, go leave a review on iTunes. You'll get a chance to get shouted out on a future 12-hour marathon. Cool. Okay, I'm going to introduce Sierra and Rono in just a sec. Before that, grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, be ready to take notes, because this is going to be some gold, life-changing stuff, okay? Rono and Sierra are often described as a dynamic duo and transformational force who have dedicated their life's work to supporting women and couples in awakening their highest potential. Sharing over 30 years of adventure together as friends, business partners, lovers, husband and wife, change agents, ceremony facilitators, pleasure provocateurs, and ambassadors of fun, Rono and Sierra are known for creating extraordinary experiences and powerful containers to catalyze one's dreams and desires. As curators of magic and mischief, they have a knack for magnetizing high-frequency, conscious people who seek playful and profound experiences in which to enrich their lives, and are currently doing just that with the creation of Eden Rising, the first of its kind restival and private sanctuary for the committed. Super blessed to have them with us here today. Rono and Sierra, are you two ready to rock the house superstars?
Yeah, bring it on.
Yeah. I love it. So we are live. You two are just like rock stars, living the dream, empowering couples in such a big way. Thank you for being here. And we are going to dive right into the theme of today, which is transformational travel. So what does that mean to both of you? We'll start with Sierra. Why don't you share first?
Oh my God, transformational travel. Well, for me, it means that you can live your life, live your dreams, and move about the cabin and have it be an evolved experience, right? Transformational travel, it's like, how do you do it all without having a home base? It can be tricky and transformational and worth the while.
I love it. That's great. What about you, Rono?
For me, one of our biggest marketing strategies is something we call snowflaking. And so that means that we're our own little snowball, and we roll around picking up individual, unique snowflakes, being in person with people. Yep. So if we travel around, then we could be in person with people, whether it's at events or seminars or retreats, or like next month we're going to be in Italy. So like, who can we meet? Who can we snowflake and add it to our snowball of awesome?
Because we're always having a ball wherever we go.
Yeah.
I love it. Y'all are just amazing. This is so much fun. I feel the synergy. I feel the great energy between you two. So let's dive into what you're doing for your clients today, these couples who come and work with you. And I know, Sarah, you focus on women especially, but just tell us a little bit in your own words what you do to serve people. We'll start with Sarah again.
I love it, ladies first. You're winning me over there, Chris.
I'm like, oh, man.
So one of the things that Rono and I realized is that being in business together, we've been business partners before we became romantically involved. And there's a unique container that we've found that we've needed, being both in relationship and in business and working on projects and in our personal, et cetera, et cetera. So we're really looking for where can we find that container. And like with any good start to any good business, right? Yeah. We see what we want, and then we don't see it in the world. And so what do? You create it. So he and I got very clear that it was important for us to surround ourselves with other couples that were up to really amazing things that, for those of us, and I know, Chris, you can probably relate because you're doing great things with your beloved. What happens often is when we're up to visionary things, when we're out to change the world, we've got big passions, big missions. Oftentimes that means that the relationship can sometimes of get on the back burner or get put aside for these big visions. And that's not really supportive, ultimately, one, to the relationship, which is the core of our foundation when you're in a relationship, but two, doesn't serve the business, and it certainly doesn't serve kids, for those of you that have kids out there. So for us, it's more about, while we have coached couples in the past and done that, we're more interested these days in creating immersive experiences that have a very safe and sacred and confidential container where our community, really more than their clientele, can immerse themselves in the coupledom and the committed partnership while still having a beautiful networking and connection for fueling their business. But their business gets fueled by their deepening of their love. So.
Wow, beautiful. I love that. How about you, Rono? What do you have to add to that?
Yes. So I would say that we don't have a client base. We have a guest list. And everyone that's here is by nomination. It's like who's your best friend? Call them and tell them they got to be here. Wow. So it's the best friends of best friends of best friends, and then they become our guests. And what we're recreating with the Eden Rising experience and the overall general Eden community is, so apparently all of us humans got cast out of the Garden of Eden many years ago for our sinful ways of eating from the tree of knowledge.
God forbid.
And it's all women's fault, and we've been making them pay for it ever since. And so
in the mythos of the religious doctrines of the
so we're like, well, I don't know if we can swear or not, so F that.
Yeah,
we're gonna recreate a way to have the experience of heaven on earth right here, right now, with Adam and Eve, the committed partnership of those two. So we really want to put you into a whole new world so you can experience what it really feels like to be in a world where it's safe for women to be expressed. It's safe for men to have emotions if you have them. It's safe to share.
If you have them.
Not me, but I'm sure some guys do. And really a place where it's encouraged. Like, we're like, yeah, make out. That's awesome. Yeah. Like, share your love, show your love. You don't have to hide it. We do have, like, we say that we're a rated R community, so we're not going into the the rated X and stuff like that. But
plenty of places out there for that.
There's plenty of that out there. So it's really a place for you to surrender, let down your guard, super confidential, super private. So a lot of our client or guests have a very public facing persona. And where can they go to just have fun, let loose, and be met by other badass couples? So that's what I would say to that.
So did you find that a lot of these, let's say, high-profile, successful, driven people with brands to maintain, they didn't know how to access healing and a relief, a solution to what they were seeking, the soul's yearning, soul's calling, but also couples, right? It's couples who are together, not just individuals, couples to come and not worry about, hey, if we share like some things that have been going on in our relationship that we wouldn't necessarily want to get out to the world, like we want that to be confidential. Did you feel like that was a need that had to be filled in the marketplace?
I think so. And not necessarily. I don't think that the couples that come to Eden and are part of our community, they're already doing the deep work. Yeah. But they don't realize that one of the themes that we're talking about is they've been holding it together, just in their own, like just the two of them trying to figure it out on their own. And maybe they'll have couples counseling, or maybe they'll have a coach or something like that. But when you add the collective wisdom of the whole tribe, and when you look across it like, oh my God, that person is so successful and so amazing, and they're having the same issues I'm having, all of a sudden it like normalizes the things that we think are so special and unique to us. And we realize that, oh, that's actually everybody, no matter how awesome or how whatever they are.
Anything in between.
Like they're just like, we're all dealing with the same stuff.
Yeah.
What would you add?
Yeah, and I'll just add that, the confidentiality, I mean, because a lot of us tend to not let down our guard because we're afraid that being too vulnerable may impact, our sales or our whatever, just all the ways that we have these fears. And we found that because we're in a room full of people who, many people in the room may recognize or have known them in some way, they can feel, like you said, just, the confidence to let down their guard, because we're all letting down our guard. And it has to do with the way that we hold the container and the experience, and the fact that it's not an outwardly marketed. I mean, this is really the first public thing that we've done to let the world know about Eden. So it's really like you were kind of like cracking open the secret door right now, to let people know. But typically it's you have to know somebody, and everybody's vetted, everybody has an interview to come, so we know that people will feel safe in that room, and we'll know. And then we have very specific agreements when we enter that container that seals that confidentiality and security for everyone to be safe and vulnerable.
Yeah.
Wow, this is beautiful. So I want to go back into both of your journey, and talk about how did you meet, and in business, what was that beginning phases like, and what were some of the challenges that you faced there, and how did you get through them?
How much time do you have?
I'll give you the quick rundown and then pass it over to her.
Sure,
she loves
sure.
to do the numbers.
Yeah, he's a numbers guy.
So we actually both grew up in the same hometown, a few blocks from each other.
Wow.
She has 4, all women in her family. She's the second of 4. I'm the third of 4. And our oldest were the same exact age, and then it was like a year off going down, but we all grew up the same thing. We went to the same, like, St. Mary's when we started, then to middle school, then to high school, even went to the same college.
He and I. We've been like orbiting each other for
Orbiting
a
each
long
other.
time.
Yeah, but I'm 2 years younger than her, so when I was a sophomore in high school, I was just a pipsqueak. She was like, meh. But we were friends because I was friends with her sister. So we've known each other.
He was like a brother. He was like a brother.
Yeah. And so it wasn't until years later when I'd grown up, decades later, I had grown up, I'd become a man, she'd become a woman. And then we met back in our hometown again for a festival that her mom had started, this big, huge festival. Wow. And we saw each other and we're both like, oh, she said, oh, little Ronnie Smith's all grown up. And I saw her all grown up. And that was like the first start of attraction, but we didn't really know it, but it was there. So fast forward to many years later, we ended up starting to hang out. She eventually came to me and said, hey, do you want to start this graphic design company with me? I had just left one of my career paths. I was a musician for a while. Then I left that and started getting into graphics sort of stuff. And so then we started a graphic design company. Then she hired me to work as the creative director for a magazine. And then we fell in love. So we say that we've been in business together for 13 years, together for 11, married for 9, and here we are. Wow. And so what would you add to our journey or our process that was powerful for the evolution of where we are? If that was the question.
Yeah, that was great. It was great.
Yeah, well, that's a good history. I think that for us, when we got together romantically, we had this huge, long history, and we didn't realize that how much actually getting physically intimate with each other would change and start to bring about the childhood wounds that typically get projected in and on your partner when you're in a romantic relationship. And so we went from this really solid base of friendship and business partner, and then once we added on the romance, some dynamics started to change very clearly, very quickly, where we found ourselves in power struggle.
And we were like, one day it was like, oh, this was fine last week, but this week you're a fit. What's going on? And we're like, oh,
right, like the actual hormones of being intimately involved and having sexual relations started to then play into what was again, a very stable friendship and business working relationship. And that was fascinating to see because I think a lot of people don't realize that can have how much of an impact that the hormonal connection between two lovers can start to stir up the biology and then create all sorts of dynamics between fear dynamics, abandonment dynamics, power dynamics that we then had to deal with. And that's when we started to get really clear that we can't do this alone. Like this is really bigger than us. And even with the most solid base one can start a relationship with, a romantic relationship, none of us are immune to the basic biological things that happen, and then the human spirit that has to evolve to then meet and match and grow and connect and stay out of fear and in love and so on. So that really was the seed of us finally coming to this place where we realized we need to create a special container for people who are in a similar situation and have a lot to do for the world. Because when we would break down, our businesses would break down. Like it would impact everything and vice versa, right? Like, and so how do you navigate all of that and stay madly in love and sexy and connected and communicative? And, I can go on and on.
And I'll just add one little piece to this. I think that's what made us uniquely qualified, if that's the right word, to receive the download, to create Eden, because of our friendship and our love as brother and sister, even though it sounds a little weird, but like just like you're my brother, Chris. And what I would do for you, like, because like you're a bro, you're on the same path. We're here to support each other and love each other. So from that place, that's really the cornerstone of what Eden is about. Like really brothers and sisters loving each other from a place, not sexually or anything like that, but from a place of true love of one another. And then let's build the businesses, the relationships, the sex, the fun, and everything in a committed partnership. That's the number. You cannot get through the gates unless you're in a committed partnership.
Yeah,
or divine union or something. Like
this is beautiful, and I think what I'm hearing is like the resonance of souls, the reflection of, hey, you are a infinitely capable, loving being, and I'm an infinitely capable, loving being, and together we're on this journey. So what are our values? What are our goals? What are we going towards? And like, especially for the people who are up to big things, who want to build businesses, who want to impact and serve, and all this kind of stuff. Like we're on like pretty much the same path. We might have different or different paths, but like same kind of destination, right? Same. That's where we want to get to.
I'll go into that mountain over there.
Exactly. Transcendence, evolution, our greatest possible self. And so being next to people who are on different places, who can be powerful mirrors for us to say, hey, what am I doing? What's going on in my hormones? What's going on in my habits, in my wounds that are coming up? And to have that powerful mirror for us, like you've created with this community, is like, it's essential for the fastest. Not that fast is the priority, but for the fastest way to heal that stuff and get back to like thriving and happiness and freedom,
Totally.
Yeah.
Like we kind of like the thermostat of life and the thermostat of our relationship, it's set to a particular existence. And what's awesome about what we've experienced with Eden is, like you're saying, something that may have taken us out for a month now takes a minute or a day, and so that's a big bandwidth saver.
Big bandwidth saver.
Just talk efficiency here.
Efficiency.
Let's get back to making love. Come on.
Right, exactly. Totally.
I love it. Okay, so you guys, did you start the transition in your business to start coaching couples, and then Eden came? It sounds like it's pretty recent. What was the evolution from just kind of being business partners working on business to coaching and then these events?
Yeah, you can go. Sure.
Well, it's interesting because when we first started moving out of the publishing and the graphic design business that we were both doing and connected with, it was always personal development. And so some of our first clientele that started asking us to coach moving out of publishing and, again, more media-based services, were couples, because people could really feel the resonance of who we are, because we do have such a strong base of friendship and connection and communicability and just energetic.
Yeah.
We grew up drinking the same water, right? We're like,
and even though we were just a couple years into our romantic relationship, people just came to us. And so we started couples coaching super early on, and then realized within the first 3-4 years, we're like, we don't really want to coach couples. So how
we loved it. We have lots of tools. We are our own workshop. We really have so much just to share from how we create our relationship and the ways that we evolve. But we quickly realized, this was after years, we've both been coaches for a very long time. That's how we got into it. And then that carried on for nearly a decade, or at least 8 years or so.
I've been a business coach for 10 years in that realm.
And I've been women's
entrepreneurs and
women's empowerment coach, and we've dabbled in the couples coaching off and on throughout. But more recently, we realized that we're more interested, as I said in the beginning, in creating the container for coaches like us and facilitators and trainers and teachers and thought leaders and new paradigm creators to come into the container, and where we all share the wisdom, and nobody's got more guru-ness over somebody else. We're all really co-creating this, because at the end of the day, each one of us makes up the perfect puzzle piece to have the whole picture come into focus. So, so what we started to realize is, let's just start creating community and gathering these amazing epic couples. And we started doing it with these overnight experiences. We call them magical overnight experiences, and kind of started test bedding what it would look like to hold couples in a container with a lot of real magic and facilitation, but not direct, like you're coming to learn from us and we're going to teach you all our tools, right? But actually like in a collaborative model. And then we had already had the idea for Eden, but that's really what test bedded and then built the community. And after 3 years of those creations, it was very clear that we were ready to launch Eden, and it's been it'll be just about a year since our first actual Eden gathering, and I'd say so it's been almost 2 years since we've been really putting Eden out into the three-dimensional
25
world.
years of producing events like this and all that kind of stuff. And I would just add one thing to that too. I kind of forgot already, so I guess we'll just move on.
Let's talk about these experiences. Like, what are the ingredients that you see as essential to make it a successful experience and a what was the word? It wasn't restival. What was it? Restival. There you go. So, like that type of experience. Tell us all the key ingredients you feel are a part of this.
Cool. Yeah, I'll start. So for those of you that have experienced something like Burning Man, it's really hard to describe what it is until you're there. Like some people say, oh, it's an orgy in the desert, or oh, it's an art festival, or oh, there's a bunch of music, or oh, people just get drunk. Like there's
so many
different variables. But the reality is when you go out there, it's an experiment in alternative culture. And similar to Eden, it's an experiment in what it would be like if mom and dad got along, mom and dad didn't get divorced, like everyone felt loved and cherished and nourished, and we weren't dealing with everyone's core wounds that were running the show. Which, whether you look at any president right now out there, there's a lot of core wounds that are running the show.
Particularly obvious in some.
That's like whatever it is, like, but at the same time, like none of us really know who's who's actually moving us forward in a progressive way. It might look a lot of different ways. But what's important about Eden and the container that we've created, it's more about the container. Someone was just describing it recently. If you think about a wheel and the spokes and then the center of the wheel, we think that the spokes are the most important, but the spokes can't even exist, all of us individuals, unless the outside membrane, which is similar to a cell membrane, which then allows the nucleus and then the spokes can come from it. So we're about creating the cell membrane, the outside, the walls, the separation really of creating a new world that people can step into or come into for a moment to have an awareness or a feeling of something that they haven't felt before. And I'll close and pass this over to you. In the default world that we're all living in right now, 1 + 1 = 2. In Eden, 1 + 1 = 11. And so the coupledom, we already have worked out so much stuff. We're already best friends. So you can trust me a lot more, Chris, that I'm not going to be macking on your girl or whatever, because I'm in a committed partnership. So then our trust level immediately goes up and we're like homeboys from way back, even though we just met. Same for the ladies. And so the amount of comfort, the amount of vulnerability and ease and flow and fun that is there. And then on top of it, we're all up to big things. We're not like, I wonder how I can pay the rent. It's like we're not in those conversations. We're in like, okay, how, like, not world domination, but what are we gonna do out in the world? World activation.
Yes.
So I think that's like a big piece, the container and the context in which we set in all of our experiences. When you step into that, it's another world. And so then you can feel things differently, so that when you go back out into the default world, you're like, oh, wow.
Let me back in. I want to go back into that.
Yes.
And you're changed forever. So then you've got to pull from. So what would you add?
That's beautiful, Rono. I love that. And let me just feel into what I would add. I mean, because of that, it gives a very different feel for everybody to be more self-expressed, to be press into their edges, knowing that there's a net to catch them, to be able to go and resolve the, maybe the pebble in the shoe arguments that have been plaguing somebody's relationship for, sometimes decades, and solve it, because you are held at such a profound level. Like all of us as humans, at the end of the day, we just desire and need to be held. And we need to hold ourselves, and we need to hold the beloved, and then we need to be held by our tribe. And it's just this one big game of who's holding who and how long can we hold each other for. And so when we actually, as adults, can feel that love, really, it's like the divine mother energy with the divine father holding the container for that holding. It's just, and then in that, obviously, it's home. And then in that, one of the things that Rono and I are, I don't say most known for, because it sounds so egotistical, but one of our magical formulas with each other and the world is, we take you deep, we'll do the deep work, but we're going to have a really fun time.
Skipping and laughing.
Like skipping and laughing, because it's like,
hey, look, it's the devil.
Yeah, I know, it's like the sacred and the silly, the reverent, the irreverent, because let's face it, nothing's that serious, even when it's serious. And the more we can really just hold and love it, but also have a good time with it. Once again, levity. Once again, it's an efficient system to move through your stuff and get to the other side quicker.
Yeah.
Like we just uncovered something 10 years ago that we didn't even realize was in our entire relationship, like shadowing our entire relationship, making us think. I was like, that's what you thought? And she's like, that's what you thought? And we're like, oh my God, for 10 years we've been living out this thing, and we wouldn't have been able to see that without the reflection of couples. Because you can't go to your single friends and get good advice. You can't go to people that are constantly getting divorced and have good advice. Mom and dad are not going to necessarily give you the good advice either. They're all awesome, but when you have other people that are on a similar path reflecting to you, all of a sudden you can see things more clearly.
Wow. So what kind of activities are present at the experience that would you say are unique to what you guys do?
Wouldn't you like to know? We did say this is a private community.
But I can give a few little nuggets.
Little hints. Okay.
Little teasers. But yes, it is. What happens at Eden stays at Eden. Well, one of the things is we recognize the importance for spaciousness. Yeah. So while there are experiences that deepen and grow and give us tools and understandings, there's also a lot of space. We practice what we call an inhale and an exhale. And so there'll be an inhale time where we're all together learning and growing and experiencing something and wisdom. Yeah. And then there'll be an exhale. And in that exhale is really where the magic is, because as much as, certainly there's all sorts of things we pack in and teach and do and learn and create, it's in the exhale that the breath comes, really, and the connections deepen and the relationships forge. And then from there, the business deals and the new love affairs of beloved
time for integration
friendships
and all that.
Yeah. And so that we found that to be very important, because typically you go to any retreat or any live event and it's like you are just jam-packed with content. All great, but there's a lot of spaciousness that's required to really integrate and activate what's happening. So that's one thing. And then each night we have a very special experience that really, again, shows the depth of the lightheartedness and the deep dialogue, and it's done in a very entertaining way. So that's where the idea of restival, where it's like there's some magical qualities. If you go to anything like Lightning in a Bottle or any sort of festival, you experience all these different fun little like playhouse type experiences. And so we sprinkle that in, while everybody right now, while it's still fairly small, takes the journey together. It's not like everybody shows up and then all these different things are happening at once. There is a collective journey that we're taking, but it is sprinkled with all these little fun elements that kind of just add in the magical qualities that pop you and push your edges and call you up and bring laughter and connection and silliness and sacredness all at once.
Yep. And the other thing I would add is that so far, and it's my intention to keep that, there's always a hot tub at Eden. So that's super helpful.
Always a hot tub.
And even if it's like, we'll rent them and bring them in, like whatever it takes, because it's just something that just creates so much magic.
It's like the cauldron, right? When we're sitting in the hot tub, that's where the most connecting and business deals happen. It's really fabulous and fascinating to see it's the incubator that a hot tub can.
It's a catalyst. It's like the thing that really makes the whole thing pop, right? Like that connection, that feeling of like intimacy and just like being present and relaxing and like letting everything go. When that happens, then it's like truly flowing between the people who are present. I had a question for, let's say there's coaches, retreat hosts out there who are listening right now who want to know how to put on a great event, a great retreat. What advice would you give to them? We'll start with Rono.
So it's interesting. I was just supporting one of my friends that he's a best-selling author, and he did a big retreat and did really well at it. And the biggest takeaway that we had from it is it's all about experience design. And what I mean by that is, from someone was describing it, the hotel that they had it at, there's 2 escalators that go up to the floor. And then as soon as you hit the escalators, that's when you enter the room. So he's like, imagine coming up the escalators and you know, it's slowly showing itself, and then all of a sudden you get there. And what had happened at this particular one was it felt more like the stock exchange.
It's a little chaotic at registration.
It was so crazy and chaotic. It's like, ooh, is that the first experience you want your people to have? Or is it when that wall or that image is coming up, it's like, there's flowers and there's people standing there and, you know, Om Shavasana or blah, 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 or whatever. And they're welcoming you with putting a lei around you and saying, come over here, sit down. When you're ready for you, we'll come get you and here's some coffee. Like, how do you want the interactions to be between you and the people? And it's so much more about the experience design, because that's about container and context, than it is about the content, than it is about having slides, than it is about
having your workbook, having
all
the
that
things.
kind of stuff. That's the last stuff you should be worried about. You should be really focused on how are you going to transform the people that are there and meet them where they're at and bring them to where you want to be so that they can have the experience that you want to have. So experience design, I would say, is probably the most important thing to focus on. What would
That's
you
great.
add?
Yeah, in and of experience design, enough space, like we just talked about with Eden, enough space to give the participants time to integrate the information. We live in a world where we're overly inundated with information, and and this has been a conversation in our industry as a whole, and anybody that does events is, so everybody leaves, and then what do they do with the information? Well, it's just becomes more noise to them.
Shelf help.
Self-help, exactly. Self-help, exactly.
That's a great self-help.
Self-help. So
how's it really helping?
How is that really helping? No, we're just churning and burning and actually really negatively impacting people who'd want to attend these events because it's the same old, same old. So to really give enough time for the participants to connect with each other, because that is really the secret sauce of any community and baseline of tribe, which a lot of these events are going for. We want to feel connected and feel belonging. And then, spaciousness to integrate the information, whether that's certain process circles or just enough time in between sessions or less content during the sessions and more time to process, whatever that is. It's really important because less is definitely more. Less is more. And too much, you maybe feels like, oh, I'm giving all this value, but it's not value. It's actually the opposite of value.
And I would add just one more little thing.
Sure.
There's a big difference between a client base and a community. And you have to decide whether you're wanting a client base and you're the guru and everything you do, it's all about you and it's just you,
you're the teacher, and you're the one making the money. And
or if you're a community, which is what we're building, where, we have a ton of expertise. Sure, we could coach you and make your life better, all that kind of stuff. But we're not God. We're not perfect. We don't have everything. We don't have all the answers. Chris has a lot of answers. Bob over there has a lot of answers. Janet's got a lot of answers. So how do we co-create this together? Still leading it. We're still leading it and ushering it. But I say that we're more like Oprah and Jimmy Fallon in our business than we are.
Just like Chris is host.
Just like Chris,
we're hosting these.
Just responsible to make sure that everyone's getting what they need versus other people kind of show up and they have a certain level of responsibility. Like, I'm going to contribute to this. I'm going to forward our intention here. But like as a host, you're like, hey, I'm making sure that everyone here is like held, seen, validated, honored, and like making sure all the pieces, zooming out, all the pieces of the orchestration are working effectively.
Totally. And that's why we're hosts and we have a guest list. Because we're not gurus and clients and subjects or whatever.
Whatever the words are.
I mean, maybe later when I rule the world, then I'll have subjects, but probably not.
The subjects will be sacred economics, sacred sexuality.
Yeah, that kind of subjects.
I love it. So as far as Eden, is there anything that we haven't touched on yet that you feel is like really important to communicate about it, or the why behind it, what gets accomplished there? Anything else you wanted to touch on?
Well, I just want to bring back the message of what even we used as the headline for this particular interview is that there's a lot going on in the world, and we've kind of siloed ourselves because of just the way that society's been structured over this however many decades, and the importance of really to truly stop trying to hold it together, because when we come together in common unity, we actually have an opportunity to truly step in and create the force field and hold it together. And that really is the essence of what Eden brings and offers, because there's so much that we can, we're having to pay our mortgages, balance our family, bring in the money, keep the relationship going, stay sexy, stay this, all the things.
Change the world.
Change the world. Like there's so much demand that we put on ourselves ultimately, but the world creates and reflects to us that when you have a solid base of really core, tried and true people who will stand for you as powerfully as you'll stand for your relationship, that's something.
Oh my God.
That is something. And there's no way, even in our words right now, can we explain it at the level that you'll feel it when you enter the gates of Eden. Truly.
Yeah. And when you feel it, you will not, you'll never be the same, because you're like, oh my God, how have I been doing this? Because if you think of like less recent culture, like the family dynamic, and in some cultures still, grandma and grandpa are still living in the house. They're on the upstairs apartment over to the right, and they'll come down and watch the babies and everything. So you have this whole support system built in. But most of us, especially in Western culture, it's like, fortunately, I'm lucky enough I get to see my mom and dad for like 3 months of a year, because we have this property back east that we hang out at. But most people see their parents a couple times a year, maybe see their siblings around a couple times. So there's the family unit is kind of broken down. And so how do we create the soul family unit that gives you those same pieces? And then the last thing I would say just about Eden is there's kind of like 2 different engagement points in it. It is a private membership club for visionary couples. And there's also like a larger community base that's growing, so that those that don't necessarily have the resources to invest in being in that deeper dive, more close-knit, like place that we can do the deep work, because it's a closed container. We do have a larger community that's growing worldwide, where you can just come and get resources and just be part of it until you're ready to dip in deeper.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think that's a part of any funnel, business funnel, so to speak, is like not everyone is ready to say, take my thousands of dollars. I want to have this incredible life-changing experience, right? Not everyone's at that point yet, but for those who are, take the freaking leap. And, people get to be warmed up. They get to be educated. They get to feel into who you are and your values. And some people can have that feeling in, minutes of meeting you. And some people can take weeks or months or who knows how long, So I think it's really respecting everyone's journey and decision-making process and where they're at. I think that's a beautiful add-on to what you have been sharing, because it's like really having people feel held wherever they're at and whatever they're comfortable with doing,
Absolutely.
So good. So I wanted to dive into Sierra, your particular message. I think we were talking on the pre-interview. You called it pussyologist.
We're going there too, huh? All right.
You're really scoring points, Chris.
And so, you are really supporting women. Tell us more about that, and what you're out to accomplish with that.
So I've been in the women's empowerment field for nearly 2 decades. And in 2016, I had one of my big events that I became very clear that while being of great service to women, I was also really kind of caught in a masculine mode of being and creating. And the two really had to break free of themselves for me to actually serve at the level I was being called to serve. So I had a bit of an ego. One of my ego, the bigger ego died. The ego never dies, but I had a big ego death experience where I blew up my brand, and I'm like, who am I, and how can I be congruent with what I teach? And in that journey, when I got quiet enough and stepped out of trying to be somebody, I like to say I was trying to be in the light, but really I just am the light. So why don't I just be the light, right? So that was the journey of me stepping into the power of just being the light and having that be enough, and not striving so hard to make sure that I was known in the world. And in that void, the power of the divine spirit really spoke to me, and she called me forth and helped me see. And granted, at the time I was doing some work with Mama Gina in the School of Womanly Arts. That's the woman who wrote the book Pussy, A Reclamation. So I was being inculcated into that connection, but I still was kind of like, that's really sexual, or that's really this, or that's really that. But what ended up happening is I was called forth to support a woman one night in a particular setting. And what started happening was I started to be shown this pussy reclamation ritual process. And I did this whole process with her and ended up essentially discovering that she had trauma on her inner labia, physical scar tissue. And in that moment, I was shown how to get her through to the other side and have her fall madly in love with her pussy. And in that process that was shown to me and what I created with her, she transformed so much that I realized that without doing women's empowerment for all the years that I've done women's empowerment, I realized you cannot leave pussy out. If a woman has any sort of emotional or physical trauma or any sort of disconnect with her pussy, right? The portal of all life, the portal that every
Which
single
is
human,
much more rampant than you think.
I didn't even realize how much this is actually a thing, because pussy has either been overly sexualized or overly shamed, typically both. And we have literally women that look very empowered walking around disgusted by the thought of their pussy. And I realized very quickly that when women can come into alignment with the majesty, the magical qualities of her pussy, and know the power that she beholds and the beauty, that she can change and transform everything and become a fully embodied, empowered woman. And what I've discovered since that beautiful day of divine initiation, I started to see, as I started doing more of these reclamation rituals, I started to see that encoded in the divine design of a woman, in her vulva, her labia, all of it, the clitoris, the hair, everything, is signs and symbols and stories. And I'm like, am I really seeing this? This feels a little nuts. But as I started to explore more deeply, it was very clear that there is a map. Of course, it's the portal of life. It's gonna give you a map. And so I started trying out and testing out doing readings, actual physiology readings for women. And turns out it's actually a valid, real thing. I actually even just met a guy who reached out to me on Facebook who's written a book on it. I didn't even know there was a book or a history or anything. This has all just been sort of present moment, need to know basis, spirit indoctrination. But yeah, and knowing when women know that their story lies within the design of their pussy, they can have a much more beautiful relationship, knowing that their story's right there and you can't deny it. And then it normalizes. It helps them see that, once we take the sexuality away from pussy long enough for a woman to really get the power, we can layer the sexuality back on, and she has a whole different relationship with how she's going to access, bring her pussy, protect her pussy, all the ways. So it's really, I feel like, until all women on this planet can, and men, but first women, because we've got to know what we have, and then we invite the men to also, men know what we have in many regards, but from their perspective. But when women can really stand powerfully in that and listen and be guided, it's the whole world is going to change significantly. There's the conversations are already changing, but they're still very much up here and in the memes. But this is an embodied way for women to actually claim their power. And then it's just the ripple effect. The planet will bow down and worship at the power and the divinity and the beauty of pussy, and all of the cocks of the world will be erect and at stand for pussy. And it's the perfect symbiotic relationship of the design of nature. And so that's my stance. And I could say a lot more, but
I love it. I love it.
A lot of honoring happens from that. I want to add one thing that you said too. Sierra's process too, there's no touch.
Yeah, it's not sexual.
It's just a witnessing, similar to what's that? When you witness something, it changes the state.
Quantum physics.
Quantum physics.
Yeah.
Like quantum physics in that way. Just by the witnessing alone, that changes it. And it unsexualizes it. It's changed my life too, just being in this process with her. And how I'm like, wow, even as an arguably conscious man who is devout to women and have been in women's empowerment with you for many years, I'm still an asshole. When it really comes down to it, over sexualizing things, really not honoring women, even though I thought I was, or I think I am, or we think we are. There's a it's so old, the shame and the sexualization of it, that it just seems normal. And when you actually really think about it and look at it, you're like, that's not normal, and that's actually messed up, man. What are we doing here? Why are we not honoring our
the portal of whence you've all come in?
I love both of your passion, and Sierra, thank you for just opening this conversation up for women and men who are tuning into this, who are they feel right that the pussy is something that is powerful, right? But there's all the baggage that has come with it because of society in our programming. And I think freeing us from that shame, from that guilt, from all that, lower vibrational energy, so that we can really hold and honor that aspect of our, divinity, of our physical body, is so powerful. And I wanted to bounce over to Rono and hear what your position is, so to speak, or your relationship with the cock, and how you have been studying that as Sierra brings this conversation forth. What's your relationship been around that?
Yeah. Whoa. All right. Well, thanks. I wish I could have prepped for this.
I was coming on here to talk about Eden, damn it.
It's all part of Eden, really.
I mean, it's a fascinating one. I remember, like, when I was a young boy, like in my teens, I remember not liking my cock so much because it seemed to have so much more power over me than like will or anything else.
Wow.
And we won't get into any details like that, but a lot of young men all of a sudden they're like, "What the hell is this thing?" And it's telling me all this stuff. There's a TV show on it, like a cartoon show on it now. I forget what it's called, but it's hilarious on Netflix. With like the cock monster and the pussy monster, and they're all talking to these little teenage kids. It's hilarious. It really gives an idea of what's going on. But I think for me, what's present in the moment right now around cock and its power is the word hold. And what Sierra's been recognizing in our relationship, just as in general, how she's wanting me to hold more. So obviously men that can hold in the bedroom will be better lovers, because it's not this short thing, and lengthwise or time-wise. There we go. And also our ability to hold our women, to hold wealth, to hold our ability to be steadfast.
To hold space for our
voice, to allow women to speak and not need to speak over them, to hold ourselves and our brothers in non-competition and be sovereign in our own selves, that we don't have to prove or this or be macho because we've held our own divinity. So that's like the most present to me around my cock and use of it. And also, like, through this process on both sides and with the support of the Eden community, we have these types of conversations. Again, we're not a sex community. We're not having sex with one another, but we are talking about sex. We say love bubble in a love bubble, but we stay in this love bubble here, and we're talking about all this kind of stuff. And so for me, I think the biggest piece is like it's allowed me to actually have a deeper conversation with my cock and be more tuned into it. And the sadness of it as well, and the cock shame that men have too, about, oh, am I big enough? Am I strong enough? Am I this? Am I that? Or and just the shame that we also carry. It's helped because Sierra has claimed it for herself, and then other women as well. They're more empowered in themselves, so they're also not projecting onto us our shortcomings, or they're not saying, oh, you're not a man. They're not emasculating us. They're actually be able to hold space for us to be more vulnerable in the hurt that we've had in performance or this or that. And like, I would argue that I'm an amazing lover and all those things, and I'm only getting better because of the holding, the ability to have a deeper relationship with my cock as well. And it's like, be able to talk about it with my brothers.
Yeah, the conversation. That's what I hear is like really so powerful, is to just be able to share about our experience, whatever it is. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just what we've experienced. Now, how do we stop stuffing it down because we're not allowed to share about it, or it's not appropriate, or blah, 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 and just say, hey, this is my experience in the proper time and place and venue, of course. But a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people don't have that safe space where they can just come, and that's why, no pun intended, and that's why they can go to Eden is Rising and just like really be themselves and, let themselves be. I think that's so freeing.
And that's another thing too, just a quick throw back to an earlier question. We do split up and do some, we call it innie and outie work versus man and woman work. Just
working with the non-binary evolution.
It is a mostly, we say, monogamish couple like center, but we talk about everything.
And more diversity is coming in, and we're excited to have our first non-binary couple in the Eden space this time, and this is going to probably shift and evolve the conversation. But
Totally.
yeah.
Wow. That's a beautiful opportunity. That's huge.
Definitely.
Awesome. This has been a blast. I want to tell people how they can stay connected with you. What are their next steps? And if there's any final wisdom or things that you wanted to share with our audience, feel free to do that. But let's wrap up the conversation because it's been gold, and I know people want to stay connected with you. So let's wrap it up. Final takeaways. Let's start with Rono. What are your final takeaways?
So my final takeaways are, Chris, I really appreciate just how poignant your questions are, how focused you are. I really appreciate your heart and what you're doing here. So I just want to acknowledge you for that. I think it's lovely. And so thanks for doing this and having us on. If you're in partnership, if you are like, whether it's business partnership, anything, like, don't do it alone. Like, get other people around you that are supportive, that are like wanting to call forth your vision, because people without vision just have giant TVs. Like, so like we want,
our friend says, is your TV bigger than your vision?
Yeah.
Wow. That's good.
Yeah. And so like, if you like get something in your life around it, if you feel that you're called or you resonated with anything we said about Eden or the pussy work, I think the best way to get to all of them is our main website. Is that something that I can say?
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
So it's a lifestylized, which is lifestylized.com. And on that homepage, there's a link to Sierra's pussy work. There's a link to the Eden is Rising. And then, a few other things, but it's a very simple site. You don't have to opt into anything. You won't be bombarded with ads. If for some reason it says not secure, it is secure. We're working on that. But like,
damn SSL security certificate, Jesus.
They're like, it's secure on our end, but so they say it's just our computer, so it should be fine. But if it's not, don't worry, you're there. But it's lifestylist.com, and there's a link to Eden is Rising.
And EdenIsRising.com is the page of the video on there. And I'll just throw in secretsoftheyoniverse.com as well. But again, lifestylized.
That has it all. And I will say this too, our event is a week from yesterday, or a week from tomorrow.
Wow.
And there is one spot left. And so if someone's like, holy shit, I heard this and you got to get on it, go to Eden is Rising, fill out the form and get in contact with us. Like, there literally is one spot left. So we'll have that conversation. We'll interview you, see if you qualify and move you in.
And there is, it is an annual event. So we are planning the next one in the spring. So if it's not for now, just get in the community, get connected, let's jam. And then I would say my biggest takeaway is, I think you summed it up, Chris. It's really just what you're doing and how you're highlighting the various voices in the field and giving great content and probing questions and how you hold this. I'm very excited to have gotten to connect with you and all of you listening. Thank you for just who you are and the fact that you're even showing up to take the time to be here to listen to this. We don't take the work we do very lightly, but we are lighthearted about it, and we're very grateful for whatever you receive from this. And I received a lot just from being able to have a platform to share. So thanks for helping us open our Eden gate a little wider. By inviting
absolutely.
us.
Your devotion, like we really hear, I hear your devotion to this mission and to holding a space and the healing that gets created at Eden, and just you two and the community and the tribe that you are creating around you. So I think it's super beautiful. So again, the websites, I just want to recap those for everyone. It's www.edenisrising.com, secretsoftheyogiverse.com. Yoniverse. Okay. And then the last one is a lifestylized. Is that what it was?
Just
lifestylized. Beautiful. Yep. Cool. So I got those in the comments, and y'all, anyone listening, check them out. Follow Sierra and Rono, and just keep growing on your journey. Find some conscious people who are like woke AF and still on their journey, and just keep growing yourself. And I appreciate you two taking the time to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very much so. Thanks, Chris.
Yay.
Awesome. We'll see you soon, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, take care. Bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen.